the way that we treat these people can be improved dramatically. And so that starts to lead you to things that actually work, like soothing touch and soothing music and natural techniques. All of these things naturally improve feeling safe in the body, and that helps people to feel safe enough to heal. So that led into the development of Apollo, which is using the science of soothing touch to deliver safety signals to the body that help us to feel calm and in control at any time, which is a skill that all humans have. I think in a lot of ways, people are more disconnected from each other now than they have been in a long time, which is strange to say because on the surface, people feel more connected through social media and all these things, but we're more disconnected from each other in like the authentic human way.
This is Vibe Science, a top 100 wellness podcast presented by the Radcast Network, breaking wellness barriers and making health truly personal. Here's your host, Ryan Alford.
Hello, and welcome to Vibe Science. We're always about going to your highest vibe. It's about mind, body, and energy. I think, this next guest makes a lot of sense. I'll just say my co-host, Chris Hansen, has been in my ear for 3 years, telling me about his product. Little did we know we'd end up having him on the show about how wonderful it is. He is a neuroscientist. He's the chief medical officer at Apollo Neuroscience, Dr. Dave Rabin. What's up, Dave?
What's up, Brian? Hi, Chris. Thanks so much for having me.
Yes. Apollo Neuro, I don't know how many times you get on the show and you get to hear these accolades, Dr. Dave. Probably a lot now because your product's getting out there. But your biggest advocate is officially here. Chris has been telling me forever. And then when I got my hands on it, I see why. Because I'm always the skeptic of the two. We're kind of like, we both believe in the same things, but I'm kind of, Chris is kind of the lover. I'm the skeptic sometimes. Like, oh, I don't know. I got to try it. But
you got to be skeptical. It's important. It's important to be skeptical.
Yeah. Yes. But how are you, Dr. Dave?
Good.
What's
busy?
Yeah.
Life is busy.
Life is busy.
We're creating technology that's really like healing humanity, and we're studying how psychedelics work, and we're, exploring consciousness in mental health. And this is like this is the most exciting time to be working in our field ever. And there's faster change than ever. So it's a really, fantastic time to be working in this space.
It is. And I know we're going to get down it. It seems like we're making some real steps in people opening their minds in a lot of ways to things, techniques, modalities, and different things. Unfortunately, we seem to take 3 steps forward and 4 back. Sometimes we'll get to that here shortly. But let's set the table for our audience, Dr. Rabin, and you give a little bit of maybe the Cliff's Notes of your background and everything leading up to Apollo, and then we'll go down a few other lanes.
Sure. And I think it's so funny that the resonance between what you guys are doing and on this show and Apollo, because Apollo is literally technology that delivers soothing vibrations, good vibrations to your body to raise your vibe, right? Like that's
Exactly.
the whole point.
Literally.
So we're aligned in that mission.
Yes.
And this really started for me when I was working with patients with severe PTSD and traumatic brain injuries, and a lot of veterans, military veterans who were really struggling. And we just didn't have good treatments for them. And when you really started to look at the data, it became very clear, this is going back to like 2012 for me, it became very clear even at that point that we knew that the evidence was pointing to the medications that we had available, like Paxil and Zoloft for PTSD, were only working in maybe 30% of people long-term. And everybody else, all the other 70%, were continuing to struggle daily with symptoms of PTSD. And that just stood out to me as a really, really bad statistic for Western medicine. Like we are really doing a crappy job. We're only hitting 30% successfully, and everybody else has side effects and symptoms, right? Like, come on. So this is like an area that's ripe for improvement.
Yes.
And I had been studying chronic stress for quite a long time at that point, and just been really interested in the impact of stress on the body and how it in some people improves performance clearly, right? Like look at some of the most incredible performers in the world, the Michael Jordans and all the incredible elite athletes of the world, and Simone Biles, right? These people have faced incredible challenges, and yet they have achieved a level of human performance that is just exquisite. And then we have the complete opposite end of the spectrum where people develop mental illness, right?
Yeah.
So what's the difference? And why do certain people trend towards one direction or another? And so that's been a big focus of my research, and it's just been the way that we treat these people can be improved dramatically. And so that starts to lead you to things that actually work, like soothing touch and soothing music and natural techniques, the smell of your mom's chicken soup, right? Like getting a hug from a loved one or a pet. All of these things naturally improve feeling safe in the body, and that helps people to feel safe enough to heal. Healing requires safety. If your body thinks you're running from a lion, you're not going to be able to turn on healing response, right? All your blood's going to your muscles and heart and stuff. So yeah, so that's kind of the idea. And so that led into the development of Apollo, which is using the soothing touch, the science of soothing touch, to deliver safety signals to the body that help us to feel calm and in control at any time, which is a skill that all humans have. Like neuroscience has shown, we can all be calm and in control at any moment. Any moment. It's possible if we practice doing it and understand how to do it, right? So Apollo was really an effort of using the neuroscience of this attention and touch and calming in the vagus nerve system to activate the recovery response and help people feel safe in their own bodies, which is also kind of how MDMA works as well, molecularly, which is another part of my research. So that's kind of tying it together for you.
Dr. Rabin, we're going to get to the nitty gritty of the product, the touch and all that. And I know Chris probably I want to tee him up for, asking you a few things, but I like to know what drives people. What made you so interested in this? Like what usually there's, nature or nurture, there's been, maybe you're born to be this, but like something probably impacted you that made you passionate about this. I would assume.
Yeah. I mean, there's different parts of it that I'm really passionate about, like on one hand, growing up as a kid who had very vivid dreams, I was really fascinated by what dreams were and that they felt so real that to me, I would be finding myself as a kid, like referencing a conversation with my brother in real life, but he was actually dream Richard, right? So he had no idea what I was talking about because it happened in my dream, but I remembered it as real. And that was pretty wild. So as I started to notice that other people also had those experiences as well, it became an area of real fascination for me, because my parents would always say, who are very, very, my parents are both physicians and have done research before in the past. And so they're very thoughtful and critical minded about these things, but they didn't want me to be afraid of nightmares. So they just said dreams aren't real. Mm. And I kept having them and they kept feeling real. And they told me what the word real meant. And they told me that dreams aren't that, but they feel it. So there's something going on here where maybe we don't understand what real is, right? Maybe there's more. Maybe there's more to this.
Yeah.
And I was probably about 7 when I first had that thought about that word, where I was like confused about what the word real meant because of this contradiction between what I was feeling in my body and what the respected authorities were saying. Right. So from there, that became like a major focus of my attention. And then I started learning, like reading about science, sci-fi and neuroscience. And as I got older into like, end of like early college and that kind of thing. And and then found mental health, because mental health is, I've always kind of had a passion for like preventing injustice, stopping injustice, like as somebody who I feel like my parents always did a lot of good for the community and like providing healthcare to people who couldn't afford it, who really needed it. And one thing that was always passed down to me was that people everybody deserves the right to heal. No matter who you are, no matter what your background, no matter what you've done, you deserve the right to heal. If you've done something really, really bad, it's a crime, you can be prosecuted for that after you get the opportunity for emergency healing. And that's like the Hippocratic principle of medicine. And it is aligned with like these ancient Eastern principles and tribal principles of medicine, that everybody deserves the right to heal. And so for me, having parents who also practiced medicine in a way where they were modeling giving people who couldn't pay access to healing that was very, very costly, at their own expense, and doing it a lot, really, created a great model for me to feel like that was part of like a duty of being a human, and especially a duty as being a doctor. And so, um, you know, mental health became fascinating to me because a lot of it is meaning related, and stress impacts it so much. And it seems to be where a lot of these things overlap, but you get these devastating consequences if they overlap the wrong way. And then people don't get better for a long time because we're just treating the symptoms. We're not actually treating the source of the illness and getting to the heart of that with people, which is what a lot of the more modern tools are helping to do. And so seeing the opportunity there with so many people who weren't getting better in the current Western model, even though it does work for some people, it just doesn't work for a lot of people, too many people. That to me was like, okay, these people deserve healing. Let's see if neuroscience has already shown how we should be treating them.
Mm.
Right? Like if science, like maybe the problem is in translation from the research to the clinic, which I also noticed being a clinician scientist over the time of my training and practice, that there are huge gaps between what the researchers are doing and what the doctors are doing.
Mm.
Right. And so I tried to, like, as I started to learn within the system of academic medicine, I learned so much, but I also, especially like, what are the gaps in the system that prevent the effective translation of these billions of dollars of worth of discoveries over the last 100 years into actual practical tools and treatments for people that don't have them today. And I just refuse to believe that with all of that research we've been doing and everything I was reading, that we don't have more answers to these questions on the clinical side. Because the clinical side is just, how do we make people feel better? That is a lot easier than like, how does a specific component in this cell work with this drug?
Mm.
Right? Those are very different levels of complexity questions. How do we make somebody feel better has a lot of nuance, but it's also a lot easier to answer in general. And neuroscience now today has shown how we can do that with lots of different technologies, plant medicine, supplements, behavioral techniques, cognitive techniques, breathing techniques, meditation, yoga, mindfulness, vibration, sound, light. All of it is understood already. We know how it works. So that became for me like my passion, driving my passion of like consciousness and meaning with helping people who deserve healing who weren't getting it. I was like, let's work on translating what we have learned over the years into tools and treatments that people can use. And Paulo became the very first of that we launched in 2020.
That is the most thoughtful response to that question we've ever gotten. Because I ask that question a lot because I like to get under people's hood a little bit to know how they tick or what makes them think. And at the same time,
It's a big question.
It really crystallized for me. And you said at the beginning, like, the vibrations and vibe science. What you just described is exactly why we have this show.
Yeah.
Is because modern medicine treats a lot of symptoms, and then holistic medicine sometimes gets too woo-woo. And Chris and I are not kind of woo-woo guys. We're executives, we're workout, we're hard pushers, like, moving fast. But we know we've got to get to the source of making people truly healthy. And you said it, that's a key word. The number one word of everything you just said is getting to the source of the issues and solving things and not just treating symptoms or parts and pieces of it. So, I'll say this. I've been in marketing for 20 plus years and have done a lot of it. And interpretation of data and the misalignment, that really hit home for me too, as kind of a guy that's seen that happen. You can make data certain. I can go look at a study sometimes or look at the data, and then I go over here and I look at what the output was. I'm like, wait, like, well, and I don't know that mine's right or theirs right, but I'm like, I'm not sure we connected these dots. And it sounds like you see that a lot yourself.
Oh yeah, all the time. Because people are so siloed, like people are so I think in a lot of ways people are more disconnected from each other now than they have been in a long time, which is strange to say because on the surface people feel more connected through social media and all these things, but we're more disconnected from each other in like the authentic human way of community and being around each other, being around those that are similar to us and like-minded, and also making sure that we have time to be around people who are different. And that diversity and the enrichment of community is kind of lost right now. And a lot of it is, there's a lot of reasons for that, right? Social media itself is part of the problem. Politics and division is a problem, right? And creating like reasons for people to hate each other. Like, why do we need more reasons for people to hate each other? That's like a crime against humanity, right? Like, even if you're doing it subtly as a form of politics, like, why are we okay with our public servants that we technically elect that are supposed to represent us and support us as a community? Why are we okay with them inciting, even subtly inciting division between people? Like, we need unification now more than ever. And there are parties that are making money by manipulating the government to divide people. Like,
Crazy.
what?
Yeah.
Right? Loneliness is the biggest problem in the entire health community. Public health wise, loneliness is probably like one of the single biggest public health problems that is easily solvable with $0 by just creating reasons for people to come together.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
$0.
And it's happening on both sides. The whole system's broken, It's just
but it's solvable. But it's solvable.
Totally solvable.
Right? It just needs to be the people, the things that are happening that are like blocking it from just doing what it's supposed to do need to kind of stop. Right.
Yeah.
And then if we it's just like with ourselves, right? The problems within ourselves are always like as above, so below. Right. Like when we realize that we're like in our own way a lot of the time, all of a sudden we get out of our way, we stop overthinking things, we get more in the moment, and our body just does what it's supposed to be doing.
Dr. Rabin, let me ask you a question, kind of getting us channeled in on like some of the more recent stuff you've been working on and some of the unfortunate results of, some things that have come out of, things with the government and FDA and all that. But why is it so difficult for us? It's seemingly been easy for pharmaceutical drugs that have so effects at best and, addiction issues galore on the other side of worst. But we fight certain natural or other things that have just been taboo forever. Why in 2024 is it still seemingly so difficult to sort of get on the other side of this thing?
That's a great question. There's a lot of reasons. Right?
Is it just 70-year-olds in the government that just are never going to think of certain compounds or, cannabis or MDMA as anything but, psycho hippie drugs?
Is it the boomers that are
Yeah.
just like Nancy Reagan told us no to drugs?
Yeah.
So, and thinking about them as drugs of abuse only. That's how we were taught in medical school, right? So I think the first point is that
Great point.
as open-minded as so many doctors now are and healthcare providers are, we were taught in medical school, and for the most part still are across every single academic licensing healthcare institution, that all these drugs are psychedelic drugs, cannabis, all these things are drugs of abuse. They don't teach about medical cannabis, even though we've known about it for so long. Maybe a few schools do now. But it's really, an old, mostly in the history, medical education was funded in large part by pharmaceutical companies.
Yeah.
And so for obvious reasons, right? That's why it's so drug focused and there's no nutrition, right? We get like 24 hours combined nutrition for every doctor. Every doctor has no more than 24 hours of nutrition education. It doesn't make, the only way that makes sense is if you follow the money. Right.
Bingo.
That's it.
Exactly.
So we're in that system, and that system has existed for a really long time. And even though there are many, many healthcare providers who are like, I hate to use this term, it's like so overused, but basically waking up to the understanding that we could be doing things a lot better. Just thinking about that simple thing, right? We could be doing things a lot better and probably saving a lot of money in the process because we're getting rid of inefficiencies like all of these old systems and things that we've talked about that are like preventing cheap or free plants from patients, right? That could be healing them instead of expensive pharmaceuticals and inpatient hospital visits and like all, stays and all of these things that cost, potentially like tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars a year per person, right? We could be doing this with plants that we teach people how to grow themselves. We could be doing it with
literally,
right? Plant-based extracts that are, like formulated by, actual compounding pharmacies. Like they know how to do, like this is their job of a compounding pharmacist, by the way. Most people have probably never even heard of a compounding pharmacist, but that's called a real pharmacist.
Real pharmacist. That's old school. That's 100-year-old
CVS handed you the drive-through prepackaged pills. This to the actual formulator.
And they make a lot of it like right there for you, custom dosed and formulated for you and your needs, like a doctor, but for the medicines. And they do the prep. And so when you start to think about medicine from the old way, actually, like the really old way, you go back like, Hippocrates and like, Maimonides and some of the
apothecary times.
Yeah, and even into the late 19th, early 20th century, there were a lot of great critical minds that understood the philosophy of medicine and healing and just how to think about patients first and making sure our patients all around are taken care of, not being like given things that they shouldn't be given because it's easier or because it makes more money or whatever.
Dr. Rabin, talk to you. I know you mentioned MDMA. I know that we just had a, kind of a step back in some of the FDA stuff. I mean, I just, again, am just floored. And look, I got 4 kids. I'm not a druggy guy, but I'm just a common sense guy. I'm like, if there's things out there that are helping where nothing else has been effective, why are we getting in the way? I don't get it. I don't understand.
So maybe for all of your listeners who are not necessarily that familiar with the impact of MDMA, I'll give you a quick recap. So the data in the last 20, 30 years for Paxil and Zoloft, which are the only two FDA approved treatments for PTSD, are having this 30% long-term response rate with so 70% of people are still sick. MDMA this is taking those medicines for life every day with side effects. Some of them, they're not always that bad, but side effects nonetheless. MDMA-assisted therapy, 3 doses of medicine, 42 hours of psychotherapy with 2 therapists over 12 weeks results in 70 to 88% response rates, meaning that people, the opposite number of people, almost like most of the people are experiencing some response, which is 3 doses of medicine. No long-lasting side effects. Any side effects that happened were light and they just happened during the experience, and then afterwards, therapy, they were gone. No long-lasting side effects. And what's even more interesting is that in the earlier phase 2 studies, something like 55% of people who had on average 17.6 years of treatment-resistant PTSD, meaning they've tried everything and nothing's worked, 55% or so of those people were no longer meeting diagnostic criteria for PTSD 2 months after having the MDMA therapy 12-week 3-dose treatment. These people have responded to nothing. So that in and of itself is incredible.
Why did the FDA turn it down?
So that's also a really good question. So I don't think they're getting paid. I don't think the FDA got paid off in any way to turn this down.
And the one thing I read one article that they felt where some of the respondents in one of the studies, maybe it was the one you referenced, said they felt pressured to say it helped more than it did or something. That was the one, and I don't know if there's
no evidence of that.
Yeah.
That was basically made up.
It felt made up because they didn't have anybody that was quoted or anything. It was just like, okay.
Yeah. They're just like, let's make this reason and put out in the news.
Yeah.
So if you want to get real right now and understand like how crazy the world is, like this is also really unprecedented, at least from my understanding of the history of medicine and the development of like drug treatments to help people. So basically this group, there's a group of people who, many of whom used to work for MAPS in the past, when MAPS was just a nonprofit. But MAPS raised like $160 million or more as a nonprofit with philanthropic donations to take MDMA to the FDA's desk.
Dr. Rabin, can you just explain MAPS real quick for anyone listening?
So MAPS is MAPS is the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies. Now they have a for-profit arm called Lykos, and they have been working for 40 years to prove that MDMA-assisted therapy works safely to treat PTSD. It's led by originally Rick Doblin, they're the only nonprofit pharmaceutical company that's focused on like common good treatments that are like not focused on making a return. They're all focused on just getting these successful psychedelic treatments out to the world of people who are suffering. Like, this is absurd, going back to like the original principles of medicine. None of these people are doctors or researchers or actually work in the space. They're just people who want to share their opinion, which is great. Go for it. Share your opinion. But don't like fuck up 40 years of real people's hard work that was like allowing the antibiotics for mental health to be delivered to the community finally. After 40 years, you're going to fuck that up as you're like, I'm coming in as a hero, right? Like,
but only for these groups of people, not for these ones.
I just don't understand what they think. What are they gaining if they were on the MAPS camp and trying to help get MDMA forward and over the hump? What would be their motivation to set it back 10 years?
Ego,
I don't know, man. Vengeance,
yeah.
Right? Like getting back at them, by saying like, hey, this isn't safe, but like now we get as much MDMA as we want on the street, so we don't need you anymore, right? Like, that's like the only thing that I can think of, because the tone of all of these folks who are writing to the FDA and publishing their open letters and going on Twitter and at TED and saying publicly how proud they are that they did this, right? They're saying how proud publicly that they prevented this incredible treatment from getting to all of our patients and friends and family, right? Like, what is going on in America?
Yeah.
That is okay. And not that they don't have the freedom of speech to say what they want. They can say what they want. But the fact that the FDA advisory committee that first read those letters and voted on June 9th, that you probably heard about, was the first disruption, and then informed the FDA and that the FDA that actually reviewed this did not clearly go and do a thorough review of the data and compare to what our current treatments are doing. Because if they had done that simple comparison I provided to you earlier, it would take a 5-year-old to know that you choose the one that actually works, not the one that doesn't.
Yeah.
Right. And it's safe. So like we know that if you actually review the study data, you know that it's safe. And it's been studied in other studies to shown to be safe. So like the fact that they focused on safety as the issue and all of this, which was the exact language of the people from the symposia group, they basically just took what they said and were like, meh, this looks scary. Scarier than we thought. Yeah, scarier than we thought. All right, let's delay it. Make them do more studies.
Crazy.
And that's what and that's what happens. Right. And that was a strategy that they used to disrupt this for their own, whatever their own personal gains are. I don't know, but they all, they are part of, like, the underground is going to thrive now, which are people getting psychedelic care from untrained providers, because now there's no trained providers who can do it legally. So thanks for that.
Jeez.
Crazy.
Right.
Well, we know there's one treatment that's available now, and it's Apollo Neuro.
I mean, but it's based on the understanding of MDMA therapy, right? So the idea was for us to use the understanding that MDMA, which is from a lot of my research into this on the epigenetic level of our stress response genes and on our like felt safety level, safety is the most important thing. And if we feel safe in our bodies, then our bodies turn off our stress response system, which then we send blood and resources to our recovery response system, which is like digestion, immunity, reproduction, empathy, creativity, all the sleep, recovery, all of those things require our bodies to feel safe because we're more vulnerable when we're in a relaxed state. So, I mean, there's only so much resources to go around. So, like, we want as much blood flow as possible going to the parts of the body that we're using at any given time. If that kind of makes sense, right? So, this is the autonomic nervous system, which is the parasympathetic rest and recovery vagal system, and the sympathetic fight or flight system. These two systems govern more importantly than anything else, resource allocation of blood throughout the body at any given moment. And by doing things like changing your breath or squatting or exercising or, meditating, you can change blood flow patterns in your body effectively, which is, and so the more that we do things like feel safe, which activates the vagus nerve and the recovery response system, the more we heal because we're delivering blood flow to the organ systems and the parts of our body that are important for healing. And Apollo was a technology we developed out of the understanding of how this nervous system works, and that soothing touch, like the touch we all have received from our mothers when we're newborns, right? Nonverbal, instantaneous safety. If you've had kids, right, you hold your crying kids, it like can immediately calm them down. And that's because touch is so powerful at activating that safety response system in the brain. And so we figured out that if MDMA activates the system and soothing touch does it and soothing music does it and holding pets can do it, then maybe we can like replicate that effect with technology.
Dr. Rabin, where can everybody keep up with everything you're doing and the product there? Chris shows it. He's got it in his waistband there. Where can they keep up with everything you've got going on, Dr. Rabin?
I love to hear from people on socials. So come follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Dr. David Rabin. And if you are interested in deeper dive into my work, you can go to my personal website, which is also my clinic website. I'm a practicing psychiatrist. I do teach people how to provide care to people and provide care to people who are in need, because it's very, very tough out there in mental health right now for many people. So you can find that at drdave.io or apollo.clinic, and Apollo Neuroscience or wearablehugs.com if you want to find out more about Apollo. And then if you want to learn more about psychedelics, check me out at the Psychedelic Report on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
Awesome. We really appreciate it, Dr. Rabin, and really admire everything you're doing and the work you've done with Apollo.
Thank you. Really appreciate you having me.
Hey guys, you know where to find us, vibescience.media. You'll find all the full episodes, the highlight clips, and links to Dr. Dave's, all of his websites, information, and of course, the links to Apollo Neuro. It's an amazing product. Chris has vouched for it for 3 years. I'll vouch for it now. And look, keep your mind open and your vibes high. We'll see you next time. on Vibe Science.
The content discussed on this show is provided for reference and educational purposes. The content is not an attempt to practice medicine or provide specific medical advice. Always consult your personal physician for medical advice and proper diagnosis.
Thanks for listening. This is Vibe Science. To learn more or watch full episodes, visit vibesciencepodcast.com. Here's to discovering your highest vibe.